We're going to have an interesting discussion. Greetings, my name is Nina, welcome back to my channel. So I'm filming this in May 2024. In March this year, I went on vacation to Rome, Italy, and in one of the bookshops I found the book that has been on my want to read list on Goodreads for a few months already. It's called I Was Born for This by Alice Oseman. It's a very fun book, I recommend checking it out. I read it in 2 days and it instantly became one of my favorites. So this book is about two protagonists. The one protagonist is a teenager who is a fan of a mainstream pop rock band, and the other protagonist is the singer of this band. I like stories with musical themes, and I even made a video on my channel regarding the topic, so I recommend checking that video out. So this video isn't a review of I Was Born for This. This video is dedicated to a certain aspect that the book addresses. A lot of music fans in real life do address this point too. We are going to discuss a certain accusation that some music fans get.
You only like the band because the singer is hot.
Quick note, this doesn't have to be the singer, it can be any other member of the band or all of them at once. Although given that this accusation is aimed at fans of bands that has members who only sing and don't play instruments, I think the use of the word singer is justified here. And I also do remember that solo artists exist, don't worry. And I'm not a huge fan of the word hot, I just used it for a stronger effect here. Gonna be honest with you, ladies and gentlemen, I genuinely don't understand how is it a thing. How is it possible? How can people think that a lot of music fans listen to a musician just because they're pretty? Let's talk about this. So the introduction is over and now let's go to my personal experience with listening music. This is simply just my perception of things. I'm not preaching or anything. This is just my experience of things and my perception of them. No preaching or anything. In case you are new on my channel, I have been listening to lots of metal since 2012. So I made a few videos about my Spotify playlist and most of these playlists are dominated by metal. Feel free to check these videos out. Gonna confess that I did not grow up a musical kid. Lots of kids grow up with music, but that wasn't the case for me entirely. There was an attempt though, and it failed. So before 2012, I used to read a lot of teen magazines. Well, magazines with lots of celebrities and musicians and actors and whatnot. So these magazines had posters of some celebrities, including some rock musicians. So I looked at these musicians and I got frightened. Yes, you got that right. I used to be very much afraid of rock musicians in the past. As a teenager, I thought that they were way too edgy and cool and incredibly ugly. Yes, I was such a softie back in the day. Yes, I used to think that rock stars were really scary. But that's because the bands trending in these magazines had a specific image and they aimed at a specific audience. Those were the times, the late 2000s, when goths and emos were a thing. Yes, I'm that old. I remember when goths and emos were trending. Personally, I never belonged to a subculture of any kind. Not a goth, not an emo, or anything. I was a casual girl who loved listening to soundtracks from Shrek and SpongeBob, which are bangers. Yeah, the creators knew how to select music. I'd still listen to songs from Shrek and SpongeBob, like All Star and what else? Goofy Goober Rock. And yeah, I know Goofy Goober Rock is an adapted version of Twisted Sister's I Wanna Rock. I heard I Wanna Rock and I found out that the song sounds very familiar, and yes, so they turned I Wanna Rock to Goofy Goober Rock and I loved it. the SpongeBob version. Oh, and I also loved a lot of songs from Disney films. How could I have forgotten? Yes, that was me before metal, and I'd still listen to these songs. So this background of mine is one of the main reasons I don't understand the whole liking the band because the band members are attractive accusation is a thing. I don't understand it at all. Why? Another thing to point out that a lot of these cool and edgy bands from teen magazines were aimed at teen girls. I was a teen girl back then, and I can definitely tell you that little me could have never become a fan of those bands. First of all, these bands scared me. They were way too edgy and cool. Second, I was never interested in their music anyway. Like I said, the music wasn't really my thing back in the day, except for some songs. I was more into actors and films back in the day. Those were the times they were still making the Harry Potter films, and I was interested in the process and the actors and whatnot. But musicians, on the other hand, nah, whatever. I had zero interest in them whatsoever. Now, you'd probably think, you went into the opposite direction. You said you didn't understand how people could like musicians for their looks, and now you are disliking them for the same thing. Like I said, I had zero interest in their music anyway. Their music missed me completely. Believe me, I listen to whatever sounds exciting to me. The band members could look like Gollum, and I would still listen to them if I found their music exciting. Then in 2012, I discovered metal, and my fear of rock musicians finally faded. Gonna be honest with you, the band members were invisible to me for most of the time. Yes, I did not bother to look the bands up. Or to be exact, I did, but I did not pay much attention to the band members. I was interested in the music. But now you might think, but Nina, you say you didn't bother to look up rock musicians, but earlier you said that rock stars scared you. My answer to this would be that these were very two different types of bands. Bands in teen magazines and the traditional heavy metal bands, well, they aren't the same thing. Speaking of different types of bands, this goes on for me to this day. The bands that are trending everywhere, but the bands that everybody knows, and the bands that I actually listen to are two different types of bands. And no, this time this has nothing to do with looks whatsoever. Yes, even to this day, that super mainstream bands that are trending and the bands I listen to on a regular basis aren't the same bands. A few words about the aesthetics of music. I do really like traditional heavy metal aesthetics, like the black leather jackets and band shorts and some other things. I had a few black leather jackets and 2 or 3 band shorts, a few necklaces, and that's all. I mentioned earlier that I was always a casual girl. Guess what? Even with the shorts, even with the leather jackets, I still remain the casual and the softie. I don't look metal at all, and I don't actually need to. I did notice that a lot of musicians on the concerts, when they play live, they wear black shirts, and I decided to get myself one, and you could see me in that shirt, but yeah, still I look casual. And guess what? So do these musicians. And so that was my personal experience. In short, I never liked any band or musician just because of their looks, neither as a teen nor as an adult. Music came first then, and music comes first now. Despite this, I have no trouble admitting that a certain musician looks good. That's not a problem to me. Now let's debunk this accusation. First of all, everybody knows that there are bands or artists that build their careers on looks deliberately. There are even entire genres that did this. For example, glam metal, which is actually one of the reasons I don't find glam metal very interesting to listen to. Nonetheless, lots of musicians do not rely on looks alone. Looks work in the short term. Think of any big pop star that was famous mostly for their looks. I'm sure you can tell whether that worked out in the long run. I did notice this pattern here. Pardon personal experience again, but I'm sure it's also the same for a lot of people too. Okay, so the more the musician is likely to rely on their looks, the less likely I am to listen to them in the long run. Well, for example, I do remember those days when Tokyo Hotel was trending. Tokyo Hotel were so famous that I knew zero of their songs. I never heard a single Tokyo Hotel song, ever. Okay, this wasn't deliberate, it just happened, and to be honest, I'm not interested in checking them out. But I do remember that they had a very strong image. Who else thought the Tokyo Hotel singer was a girl? Well, I certainly did when I was 12 years old. I was surprised to find out otherwise. But hey, I was just 12 years old, don't go at me. Either way, is the image of your band louder than your music? Yes? Then I'm bored. Well, maybe I might like some songs, but that would be all. Oh, and only a few years ago I found out that Tokyo Hotel were German. Yes, their songs are originally written in German, but since I have never listened to a single Tokyo Hotel song, I had no idea. And I also heard that a lot of teens, their primary audience, started learning German because of them. Basically, they were Rammstein for teens. But now, around 15 years later, do people remember Tokyo Hotel? I'm sure a lot of fans do, but mostly for nostalgic reasons. So this band relied on the image, and then you haven't heard of them, I guess, that much. Okay, in short, looks are unreliable driving force for musician. Can looks and aesthetics be a part of the charm? Yes, well, for example, heavy metal and some rock bands from the 60s and 70s. I do really like the aesthetics of 60s and 70s, especially the latter. Should looks and aesthetics be the driving force for the musician? Absolutely not. Even if musician is pretty, even if the music is good and the looks are good, is that a problem? Is that a bad thing? What is wrong with acknowledging that? Acknowledging this fact or even adopting some of the aesthetics won't alter your perception of music. After all, music comes first. And finally, when you think about it, you can smell some kind of hypocrisy here. Apparently, it's okay to like certain musicians for the looks, but not the others. Or to be exact, pretty pop stars acceptable, but boy bands? No way. I wonder why. I genuinely don't know. I don't listen to either. I do think that boy bands are way too vanilla. Nonetheless, this is still hypocrisy at its finest. I do also want to point out another factor here. I guess I am too Georgian to understand these things. Most of you watching me come from Western countries, and so are the musicians, well, most of them that I assume here. And I am sure that these kinds of discussions are prevalent in the West, but that's not a thing here in Georgia. At least I have never heard this. Yeah, maybe this is a geographical cultural factor. I don't know. I guess people outside the West, they don't look at looks that much. I don't know. Maybe. Cannot claim this to be true, don't take my words at their face value, but still. The fact remains that I have never heard the complaints about looks, that this accusation here, only online and by the Westerners, for the most part. So this accusation is finally debunked, and this part is mostly aimed to the people who throw this accusation around a lot. Are you this kind of person? I don't think that you are doing anyone a favor here. I just don't see the point for accusing people for liking musicians for their looks. I don't see the point. First of all, music fans aren't like this. To accuse them is to denounce their intelligence. Second, fans of looks-driven musicians do not remain their fans for too long. So don't worry, the good music still prevails. And third, I'm sure there are a lot of musicians waiting for you to listen to them. Instead of going after others and questioning their intelligence, you could be listening to your favorite artists. So go! And now a few words to people who actually love musicians for the looks. Yes, that's the question. First of all, do such people even exist? Do people really like musicians for the looks? Are there people who really do not care for the music as long as the singer is pretty? Or some other member, who knows? If you really happen to be that person who puts looks above everything, I have one question for you. Why? Why? Like I said, acknowledging the musician's looks and aesthetics is fine. Or will this necessarily make them a good musician? I don't think so. And if looks really matter to you, why not combine them with good music out there? Don't worry, a lot of musicians happen to look good and also make good music, so it's possible to combine this. And like I said, the looks work in the short run. And I'm sure sooner or later you're going to find them. Or maybe people who love looks more than the music do not want to admit that and they accuse others of doing the same thing. Some conspiracies here, do not want to dive into them. Let's move on to the conclusion. Alright, now let's finally end this rant. The main point of this video is that accusing people of liking musicians just for their looks is incredibly stupid for a number of reasons. And I think that we can do better than that. So let's listen to good music, share our perceptions with each other, and mind our own business. Who cares how musicians look? Well, they look nice anyway, but we are here for the music. I think my point is universal. Music is meant to bring us joy and comfort. Let us enjoy our favorites and be chill about it. And if somebody does accuse you, well, I think it's better to laugh in their face and move on with your day. Well, at least that's what I would do. Anyway, that's all. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. What are your thoughts on the matter? Let me know down in the comments. See you next time. Goodbye.